Hello, family and friends. Welcome back to another episode of Bennie Bennie Podcast, where we invest our time in real talk, biblical truth, and everyday wisdom. As always, we do want to thank you guys so much for checking back in with us another week for another great episode. I am your host, Bennie Williams Jr. This here is my father, my co-host, Bennie Williams Sr. And on today's topic, the topic of the day is going to be build before the storm. Preparation is faith. You want to go ahead and just start it off with the topic?
Yeah. So we're gonna kind of piggyback on what we talked about last time, talking about Noah and the as we look and dive into the story. How does that story fit into our everyday life? Because I think it's very important that when we read Scripture, we don't just read it to read it. We want to know, how can I apply this in my life, or what does it mean as far as my life is concerned. And so we're talking about building before the storm, which means to me, actually what you think about it, but to me that means I need some type of preparation. We said preparation is faith, but I need to do something before the storm gets here. So when the storm, it's kind of like now when we see storms coming up here in the United States, whether that be a hurricane or a tornado, people they give warnings. So they give warnings, okay, the storm is going to come, and you need to do this to prepare for the storm, or you need to evacuate this certain area because the storm is coming. So that's a preparation, because you know the storm is coming. But sometimes in our life, we don't know the storm is coming. But I think God still places us in a place where He can prepare us for the storm, and sometimes that may be painful for us, and it may be hurtful to even go through whatever we need to go through before the storm hits. But as you get closer to God, I think He reveals to you, don't worry about this. I am preparing you for what is going to happen, not for what is happening right now.
Yeah, I definitely would attest to that. That I think building before the storm is kind of just planning, like you said, preparing. And yeah, that analogy with real life storms that we experience today, like tornadoes, rainstorms, whatever the case may be, hurricanes, things like that. Yeah, we get a warning, and snowstorms, stuff like that. When we get those warnings, when we get those signals, yes, most of us kind of gather our things really probably as quick as possible, and we might go to the grocery store to pick up this, that, and the third, or we're preparing or planning ourselves for what's to come. Not knowing how drastic or detrimental it might be, having maybe some sort of idea, but still doing what we can on our part to help prepare ourselves for what is to come, and that's the storm.
Right. So and piggyback off of that, how we prepare now for a regular storm, that even though you get the warning, and the warning is for everybody in the vicinity of where the storm is going to hit, and you watch the news and you're looking at it and you're like, man, that's going to be a big storm. That's going to be devastating for people that's in that area. And so Noah time is kind of like that too.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, okay, this is going to be devastating. If this storm is like what God has showed me, it's going to be devastating. But God says, okay, it's going to be devastating, but I'm going to protect you and your family because you have walked close with me. Your grandfather walked close with me. Your father walked close with me. And so Noah sees a pattern, and so he's living based on what he has seen all his life. But anytime the storm hits, especially when it's a big one, and they start interviewing people, there are always people that say they're going to ride out the storm.
Yeah.
They're like, get out of here. We need immediate evacuation. And you're interviewing people, and the guy or the lady comes on, and they're like, we're going to ride this one out.
Yeah,
we're going to stay where we are. And I think the people like in Noah times were the same way. Noah, this is not a secret because it's a huge project. And you see it's taken Noah 80 plus years to even build what God has shown him to build.
Yeah.
And so people see it happening, but they don't change their lifestyle. They stay in the same rut that they're already in. So they're not able to enter the boat because their life puts them outside of the boat. But I can imagine that as Noah is building it, his neighbors and people, they're criticizing him. They think he's crazy. And he's telling them it's going to rain, the storm is going to come, you need to prepare yourself for it. And it's just like the people of today that says, nope, I'm going to ride this out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think with Noah, for this particular story with Noah and the ark and things, I think his favor is one thing that comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And his favor comes first because of what I believe to be his grandparents and his father, the way that they were leaning so much on God, and
Right.
the way that they were so just geared towards believing in him and his word and his say so to speak. I think just the way that they moved about with that whole situation and believing in him, Noah was doing the same thing. Like you said, he saw the patterns and he saw all these things happening, and he decided to move in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And while everything around him is kind of going, I guess, downhill, so to speak, or
Right.
is just becoming so corrupt, and just not even evil, but just it's just becoming a very corrupt world, a very corrupt
Right.
place all around him. He still did the things that he knew were right, to lean on God, to pray to God, to cherish God, and just expect him to be in his corner, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think him doing that, and like you said, the history or the track record of his father and his grandparents, that allowed for Noah to have the favor in order for God to even give him this big vision, in order for God to even prepare him for this big storm that's to come, to tell him, hey, this, that, and the third, like kind of break it into small little pieces, that this is what you're going to need to do because this is going to happen in the future. And because you've been so obedient, and because of your history with your family being so obedient, this is what I'm going to do to help protect you and yours.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's very tough when God tells you something, puts you in that place where you need to do something, and He's trying to prepare you for it. And it kind of reminds me of when you had your first liver transplant,
Yeah.
and we had actually have a doctor comes out and tell us that you're not going to live. You're not going to live, and even if you do live, you're going to be a vegetable for the rest of your life. And you're just a baby, 9 months old, and this is the news that I'm getting. That's what the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to ask questions, and I think that it's important to ask the question. When something is in our life that we don't understand, nothing in our surroundings show us any glimpse of hope with what we're going through. Now you need to ask the question. You need to ask God, okay, why is this happening to me? What is going to be the outcome? Now, God might not give you the outcome, but He will give you what you need to prepare for what's about to happen. And so with you here, we was ask another doctor, okay, is there anything I can do? And then that's when we learned about the living-related donor, that I could give you part of my liver, so it could be in you, and you could just grow up normally with that portion of the liver. And so that was kind of tough to grab hold to, but God gave me a little bit at a time. And so now I have a glimpse of hope that this is something we can do. And so then we start going through, I had to go through the tests, physically and mentally tests, to make sure that I can even survive through the process. And so I remember real clearly that after the transplant was over, and I was still very sick. Actually, I was sicker than you, and they explained why that happened. But here I am. I'm believing and I'm trusting in God, but then it all hits me one particular day, and I'm thinking about it. It's heavy on my mind, and I'm thinking this was more than what I imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how it is with Noah. God has given him bits and pieces, because if God shows him the whole picture, he would never do it, because of all the things that he has to endure all that time just to build this thing that God's trying to show him. And so here I was thinking that this is just going to be an easy process, and it wasn't. It was devastating, and it was very heavy burden to bear going through it all. And I remember saying to myself, I said, Lord, if I thank you that you didn't let me see the whole picture. Because if I would have known what I had to endure, I never would have did it. Mm-hmm. And I think Noah's story is the same. God's given them bits and pieces, and I know that Noah had to think at some point in his mind, he's thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. And everybody that he knows is telling him the same thing. Now, his family may have believed him, but there was other people in the area where he lived. They didn't believe him because their life didn't change, and they were not saved. And I think that's what happens in our own life sometimes. Life gets so tough, and we can share bits and pieces to other people. But if they're not in tune to God like you are, you're going to look crazy to them, and you're going to look different for them. But I think you have to be different if you're going to walk before God and walk for Him in truth and in faith.
Yeah, and being different, that's a big key. Now, I'm Bennie Jr. and you're Bennie Sr. I don't think that our names are even anywhere in the Bible. But to relate this Noah story to us as directly as I can. So Noah being chosen, like I said before, I think is because of his parents, his grandparents, his father, things like that. And at this point in stage in the story, Noah's 500 years old.
Right.
Now, if we were to try to relate this story back to me, and based off what you just said, when I had my transplant, I was 9 months old. Mm-hmm. So me being chosen at 9 months old is kind of hard to say why, if it wasn't because of my parents, their belief in God, my grandparents, and the way that they lived. So I think that is, again, just a major key as far as the favor and the chosenness and that person being selected as somebody that is proven or showing to be different from the rest of the culture or the rest of kind of what's going on around them. So knowing that, I think that's just something very powerful that I guess Noah is blessed to have in his life. That kind of, not substance, but just that kind of, I guess, upbringing or something like that, to where, yes, his parents had this belief and they had this faith and all these other things. And them having that helped him to create a legacy for himself. Mm-hmm. The same, somewhat sort of the same for me. Because, yes, my grandparents had this belief, they had this strong faith. My father has this belief, he has this strong faith. And now here I am, not 500 years old, but newborn, 9 months old, and dealing with a storm, a very big, a very heavy storm at a very early age, but still my father being able to prevail and lean on God and all the things that he knows God is capable of, and me to an extent doing what I can as a 9-month-old baby to prevail as well. And after the transplant is successful, there's still other complications and struggles that we face and that we have to overcome and things like that. But I think it's within the grandparents, the parents, and the son itself is where the legacy starts to unfold. It's where the legacy starts to come true, so to speak. And that's when, probably shortly after that, where the obedience becomes even more so, to where, okay, you're really preparing and planning for whatever storm may come at whatever time.
Yeah, because when I know life is challenging, and it can change in an instant. We're not promised tomorrow. All that we can be sure of is this very moment, and the next moment comes. The next moment comes. But we live in moments. We don't live in days, weeks, or months. We live in moments, and one moment is going to be the last moment. We have to always be aware of that. But so when I look at Noah and I look at the challenge that he had to endure, to hold on to faith that long, being criticized that long, had to be very difficult thing to go through, because we know even in our little petty lives, we can share visions with some people, and some people we can't. And so sometimes when that vision is so great, which Noah was, that's an awesome vision that he had to have, to be able to hold on to that. And I think, to back up just a little bit, so what I think is that we was talking about how God gave Noah pieces at a time. And I think that's what Noah did. So now Noah has 3 sons and a wife, and he has daughter-in-laws, because his sons are married. So he have them, and he's doing what God's doing for him, for his family. So when God says, "No, I want you to build this boat, and this is the first thing you need to do," so he may have to even break that down a little bit more than God gave it to him, and tell his family, okay, God has said we need to do X, Y, and Z. But he's not telling them everything that God just told him. He's telling them the part that they are able to listen to and obey. And so when he's giving them that, they say, okay, I don't know what the whole picture is, but today we're just going to gather some wood. It's going to be this amount of wood, this length. And okay, that's all they know. So they go out and do that. Time passes on, and Noah says, okay, we need to go and do this. And God has told Noah, but God always tells Noah more than what Noah's going to tell his family at one time. And so every time God says something to Noah, he takes it to his family. Now he has to break that down to where they can understand it and not lose faith or hope in the process. So he has to be very careful. I can't give them too much, because if I do, they're going to stop believing, because it's too much for them to handle mentally, just pieces at a time. And so going back to your transplant thing, after we did that, and I remember you was in intensive care for something related to some side effects of the transplant, and then there was this guy there that the doctors wanted me to talk to, and I said, yeah, I'll talk to him. And so I went out and I talked to him. His daughter was in the same situation that you was in. She was getting ready to have a liver transplant, so she was on the list, but she was very, very sick. And they wanted me to talk to him because I had gone through it with the living-related surgery. And so I began to talk to him, and he began to break down, because he's like, I can't do it. And so I began to share with him portions of my story, not all the side effects that I was dealing with, none of that, just the process, so that he can understand it and he can make a clear, rational choice about what he was going to do. And he told me, he says, I can't do it, after I explained the process that I went through. And I remember telling him, I said, that's okay. I know I've told you what I've gone through, but if you can't do it, don't worry about it. And it's kind of hard for a father to give that message to someone else that needs to have the same hope that you had. And I told him that, if you can't do it, just believe, trust in God, that this is going to be okay. And I remember his daughter did finally get a liver, which was great, but sometimes I can just imagine. So as Noah, there had to be moments when he felt like he was all alone, and there had to be a moment when maybe his wife or one of his sons came to him and says, I understand this is hard to do, but just let us just do it. We'll do it together. Let us just do it, because God said to do it. So don't depend on our own strength, our own knowledge. Let's just listen to God and take this one step at a time, because in life, that's what we have to do. We have to take it one step at a time. I don't know my end. I don't know the journey that that I'm going to be on until I take my last breath. You don't know that either. But God knows it, but he doesn't show us that. So he just shows us, okay, the moment. Live in the moment. Enjoy the moment. Because in an instant, that moment can change.
Yeah, absolutely. Living in the moment is key to maybe peace or maybe harmony. But just living in the moment is key to being able to break down those obstacles and being able to just carry the wood or just go out and find the wood or whatever step-by-step things you need to do, whatever XYZ it is you need to do, being able to live in the moment to where you're not overwhelmed with the whole blueprint or the whole plan.
Yeah. And just imagine this, say like, so he's building this ark, building this boat. That's what it is. So he's building this boat, and he's getting close to the end of it. It's almost done. It's a huge structure that him and his family has built. And then God tells him, okay, that section that we built over there on the starboard side of the boat, okay, the animals are going to go there. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Because he didn't know, I'm just imagining that this is how God is telling him.
Yeah.
You said build a boat. You didn't say nothing about the animals going in the boat. And then he's asking God, say, okay, animals are going in the boat. How am I going to get the animals in the boat?
Yeah.
And God tells him, they're going to come to you. You don't have to worry about how they get there. Just build a boat, prepare it for what I told you to prepare it for, and I'll make the arrangements for what I need to be in the boat to get in the boat. Mm-hmm. And so he had to have even more faith to believe, okay, God is going to put 2 of everything inside of this boat. And now we got to get food for those animals. We got to have food for ourselves because this may take a long time.
Yeah.
And life is just like that.
Yeah.
We go through life and then we get to this point where none of it makes sense. You're like, Lord, how am I going to get out of this situation? And he says, don't worry about it. Just trust me. Whatever you need to get to the other side of this, it'll come to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to search for it. You don't have to go out because this is what I want to do in your life. And my role in it is to make sure I give you everything you need to fulfill that task. So now he's building a boat, and now it's time for the animals. And he looks up one day, and they're headed to the boat. Mm-hmm. And life is like that. We're in this storm. We are troubled on every side, as they say. And then you look up and you see hope is coming. You see this happens in your life and this happens in your life. And now you see you getting out of the situation, because I can imagine how Noah felt that, okay, I got this whole thing done. And that first drop of rain hit. Never seen rain before. Yeah. He's like, wow. And then it just starts coming down. 40 days, the rain's coming down. And as I look at it, and I look at the story, and because he's between 2 rivers.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the storm the other day about how the storm came in Tennessee and wiped out this campsite. And I was looking at it, how the water was just racing down the river, and that's just one river. And then it just flooded the town, and there are buildings, 50 feet high, and the water's covering those buildings. And I'm like, my goodness. And this just happened in a matter of days.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine, as I was looking at that, it was just yesterday, I was looking at that and I was like, that might have happened, that had to happen like that for Noah. Mm-hmm. The rain starts coming, and it's coming at such a heavy, coming down really heavy, and those rivers on both sides flood. Where are they going to go? Where's water going to go? So it's going to go right to the boat where Noah is. Mm-hmm. And so that God can fulfill his promise to Noah. And so in our lives, we see, because this you could have looked at this in 2 ways. You could have looked at it as a storm coming to destroy you and everything within it. Mm-hmm. Or you can look at it that the storm is coming. And even in the midst of that storm, no matter how strong the water is, the river, no matter how massive everything gets, no matter how much water comes, God is going to be with me. He's going to be there. Not to take me out of the storm, because that's what we want.
Yeah. to be taken.
We don't want to go through the storm. We want to be taken out of the storm. But God says, no, you're going to go through the storm, but I'm going to protect you in the storm. And so I think sometimes we have to just slow down and say, Lord, what is your plan? And there are going to be times where he's going to say, my plan is not for you to get out of this. You need to go through this. And we have to visualize that, okay, if God says that, then that means he's preparing me for something greater. And all this is just preparation.
Preparation, for sure, preparation. And with that preparation, alongside of all of that is the obedience that plays a large part in order for you to successfully fill out that plan, in order to successfully build or do whatever it is that God has called you to build or do, and being able to be obedient regardless of the criticizers or the naysayers or people that aren't believing or don't see the vision that it is you see. It's not always for them to see. It's not always their vision for them to see. So
Right.
you being able to be obedient to what you believe God has told you to do, be obedient to what it is that you believe God has said or has meant for you to do, being able to hold on to that and pursue with that obedience, pursue with that faith. That is going to be the thing that saves the plan, saves the blueprint, saves yourself and your family as well, from having to, like you said, not be pulled out of the storm, but from being able to be protected while in the storm.
Right.
So with that said, we hope everybody was able to get a little something at the very least out of this message about building before the storm. Preparation is faith. We thank you guys once again for coming out and visiting Bennie and Bennie Podcast. I am your host, Bennie Williams Jr. This here is my father, Bennie Williams Sr. We thank y'all for stopping by. We'll see you next week.